this week's survey on YouTube, 99% of you told me that you love making and then decorating your own paper pockets. So in this week's video we're making really quick and easy pockets for junk and art journals so that you can make your own ephemera supplies using your stash and feel really good when you've done it. And if, like me, you have a passion for paper, you just love junk and art journals, then hit the subscribe button, ding the little notification bell and come back next week as well, because I have lots more videos and ideas to come. This technique has 3 key benefits. Number 1, it's really easy. Just like the method we used last week for making our own handmade envelopes, it's incredibly quick to master the basics. And what that means is you can very quickly produce a whole stack of these in lots of different styles. Imagine yourself sitting at your craft desk, calmly, satisfying process for making these up in lots of different styles, just really enjoyable. So really quick and easy to do, really quick and easy to learn how to do. Secondly, I would say that this method is very economical because you can use whatever you have in your stash. It will work with lots of different textures, patterns and thicknesses of papers. It will work with shiny glossy pages from books, and I've used some pretty books a bit like this one to make some of my pockets. It will work with scrapbook papers. If you want to make the pocket with scrapbook papers, you can use your washi, you can decorate, you can use old vintage papers that are a little bit more dated to look at, and you don't need to decorate them. These are pages from a book about stamps, which gives some interesting features. This is an example of a page from a really pretty book about the countryside and landscapes around Britain, and I use this one to just tone with another page in this art journal that I'm filling. Let me know if you fancy a page turn of this one, by the way, it's nearly full. So yeah, so you can make lots of different styles using the stash that you have. Use up what you have, that's what I like to do. And thirdly, when you've mastered the basics, because it's adaptable, you can make pockets that suit your particular project that you're working on, which means you don't have to go out and buy something specific just for your junk journal or art journal that you're working on. And lastly, I think because it's really easy, it means that we've got the confidence to adapt it, and that just means it's an activity that retains the sense of fun because you can make lots of different styles. So let's work through this in 2 steps. We'll go through the basics, and then I'll just show you a few more examples to add a little bit to your own creative process. So let's make a pocket. What do we need by way of supplies? We need paper. Here's a couple of examples of the kind of paper that I've been using. You could also use beautiful scrapbook papers, maybe some floral ones, some vintage style, some little patterns on the page, different scrapbook papers from other books. So any of these would work for your pocket. You also need a pair of scissors. Doesn't need to be a particularly strong pair. It would be good if you had a bone folder because that will help us make some really crisp edges. And you need some glue, and I use this PVA bond glue just from a local store. You could also use those little sticks of glue, and that's really all you need to make a pocket. So the first thing I'm going to do is a little bit of folding. When we've done the folding, we'll do a bit of cutting, and then when we've cut, we'll do a little bit of gluing. So let's do the folding. I'm going to take the jagged edge because I don't particularly want to have that when I'm finished. I'm going to make a little margin on the side, and the width of this is about 1 to 1.5, maybe 2 centimetres. It needs to be enough to allow you to glue and have a robust finish, a substantial finish to this. So give yourself enough space to put some glue down. I'm going to then turn this around, take the other side and just fold it up to meet that edge. So all we've done so far is some folding without measuring. I have taken one of the sides in, and it doesn't matter whether it's the right hand side or the left. I'm going to fold that in, and I'm going to fold the other side over the top so it's all nice and neat. Then I'm going to take the bottom and I'm going to fold it up. And at this point again, have a think which of these sides you want to be, the back or the front when you've finished your pocket. I like to have this little edge, the folded down side, to be on the back. So I'm going to take the bottom and fold up, which means that I've got maybe a slightly tidier front when I'm done. And that's all there is to it. If you have a bone folder, just do a little bit of extra creasing to make life easy. Then we're going to unfold this and do a tiny bit of cutting. I'm only going to make a couple of cuts and they're tiny. I'm going to, let's work on this side first. I'm going to take out this bottom left hand corner with two little snips, and the snips are just slightly to the edge of the crease that we made. So I've taken that out. So that's the end that had the little margin on that we created. Then I'm going to do a little snip either side of this crease up to the fold that we made. And it doesn't need to be much, so it's a little V that we're taking out. And that's it. I don't need to do any more cutting, and it's really quick. Then I'm going to fold up the flap that has been created on the outside of this rectangle. So at one end I've got the little narrow margin, and on the other end I've got the wider flap. And what I've done is just fold that up. That's our folding done, and that's our cutting done. So now what I'm going to do is a little bit of gluing. So I'm going to glue this flap down. That's the first thing I'm going to do. So I'm going to put just a little bit of glue on, and if you're using one of these liquid glues, it really is just a little bit. And all we're doing is using this little piece of paper. It's a bit spare in the design, but rather than cut it off, we're going to use it to make this little pocket just a bit more robust. Then I am going to fold up the remaining large flap, and I'm going to put a little bit of glue on the outside of that. So in terms of the flaps, I had glue on the inside of this flap, and it's glue on the outside of this flap. And then I'm just going to run a tiny amount of glue all the way from the bottom on this outside to the top. So there are two places where I'm putting glue. Then I'm going to bring this flap in, position it on top of that gluey flap, and then I'm going to fold this one in. And that's it. That is the basics of a pocket. So shall I do it again? I'll turn that over. I quite like the jagged edge, but if you want to, you could take some serrated scissors and you could cut along there. You could also maybe give it a rather classy rounded edge look. So there's our basic pocket. Shall we do one more? So what did we do? Let's start with folding in the margin. Give that a bit of a crease. Let's fold over to meet the edge. Give that a bit of a crease. Then I'm going to fold up and give that a bit of a crease. So really, really simple, really, really easy. Open it up and let's do a little bit of cutting. Let's take out this bottom left hand rectangle with two little snips. Let's create a V between the two long flaps that we'll create. Let's fold up the large outside flap, and now let's do a little bit of gluing. We'll glue that flap down. We're using it to strengthen the pocket. Up, and just tuck that in. There we are. Then I'm going to fold up the middle flap and put some glue on the outside of it so it's ready to receive what folds onto it, and I'm going to glue from the bottom of the right hand side up. Then I will press down that middle flap bring the margin onto it. And then all I'm going to do is fold this over. And that is it. That is making these little pockets. And just to close, a few examples of different ones that I've made to contribute to your own creative process. In the art and junk journal that I've been making, I did a spread that was all about spring, and I've got a pocket here made of some nice crinkly music paper, and I've just added a little bit of green and yellow bright paint to add a bit of difference to that. And I've also made a tall thin one here using a page from a book about flowers. I pulled a page out in the same colour tones with some pretty flowers on it, and as you can see I've given that one a bit of a serrated edge, and that just adds a little something in that pocket. On this page I've chosen a page from a glossy book with the same colour tones, and I've made that as a bit of a what do we call that, a pull out in some way, and I've got a tag, a handmade tag in there, and some other bits and bobs. So it's quite a robust pocket, but you can use it as an extra fold out in your journals. And there are just a few other examples here to talk through. So I've been making them in that rather thin paper from a book about stamps, and I've been rounding the corners. Those are really easy. So I've had a go at using some of my really itty pieces of scrapbook paper, added a few little extra pieces and some washi tape. In fact, it's a great opportunity to have a play with lots of little washi tapes in different patterns. All you need is a little piece here to augment what you make. I've converted some of them into envelopes, and I might have a go at doing a video on those. That's really easy. It's just about a bit more folding and cutting. So to make that into an envelope to stick in your junk journal, I thought I'd make some little diddy ones. So these have got a serrated edge at the top, and then I've just cut out a tiny little picture of a flower. I've made a set of 3 of those. Here's a couple done in the music paper with some 5-petal flowers on, and I've got a video on that. I will link it in the description box down below. Do have a look if you fancy making some of these extra decorations for your pockets. Speaking of extra decorations, on this dictionary paper I've just stamped and cut out a couple of butterflies. We're heading to spring, so why not? These are a little bit different. So these are some very pretty scenes from a gorgeous book on the British countryside. So I chose some pages and just made a stack of pockets there. And then this is just an example using a tiny bit of scrap paper, a piece of washi and some faux stitching. So really there is no end to the style of pocket that you can make. Have a go, have some fun. I hope you've enjoyed this process for making paper pockets. I've enjoyed talking it through with you. If you have enjoyed it, then hit that subscription button, ring the little notification bell, and I will see you next week. Bye!